the lion who ruled another's kingdom. The morning mist clung to the valley like a shroud as Kale stepped through the ancient stone archway that marked the boundary of the Verdant kingdom. His golden mane caught the first rays of sunlight, each strand shimmering with an otherworldly luminescence that marked him as no ordinary lion. Behind him, the barren wasteland he called home stretched endlessly, a realm of cracked earth and withered trees where nothing had grown for 3 generations. King Aldrich's scouts had spotted the massive lion approaching their borders just after dawn, and word had spread quickly through the castle. A talking lion was unusual enough, but one who walked upright and wore a crown of twisted silver upon his brow was unprecedented. The king's advisors whispered of ancient prophecies and dark omens, but Aldrich himself was curious rather than afraid. "Your Majesty," Kale said, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to resonate through the very stones of the throne room. "I come not as conqueror, but as petitioner. My kingdom lies dying, and my people starve. I seek not your destruction, but your wisdom." The court fell silent. Never had they heard such eloquence from a beast, nor seen such intelligence burning in amber eyes. King Aldrich leaned forward in his throne, studying this remarkable creature who stood before him with the bearing of nobility despite his leonine form. "You speak of your people," Aldrich said carefully. "What manner of subjects does a lion rule?" Kyle's expression grew somber. "Once we were human, your Majesty, a proud kingdom that rivaled even your own. But pride, as they say, goeth before a fall. We scorned the old ways, ignored the warnings of the earth itself. A curse fell upon us, not just transformation, but the slow death of our land. We have perhaps 1 season left before all perishes utterly." The king's daughter, Princess Elara, had been listening from behind a tapestry. Unable to contain her curiosity, she stepped forward. "What would you have us do? We cannot lift curses or restore dead lands." Kyle turned his great head toward her, and she saw something unexpected in his eyes. Hope mixed with desperate determination. "I do not ask you to lift the curse, Princess. I ask for something far more difficult. Allow me to rule here in your father's stead for 1 year and 1 day. In that time, I will learn what we did wrong, understand how a kingdom should truly be governed. Then I will return to my people with that knowledge." The audacity of the request struck the court speechless. A few nobles reached for their swords, but King Aldrich raised his hand for silence. There was something in the lion's words that rang with sincerity, a weight of genuine anguish that could not be feigned. "And why?" the king asked slowly. "Would I surrender my throne to you, even temporarily?" "Because," Kale replied, "I offer you something in return. My kingdom, dying though it may be, holds secrets your scholars would treasure. Ancient magics, forgotten arts, treasures accumulated over centuries. More than that, I offer you the chance to be part of a redemption. If I succeed in learning what I must, if I can save my people, your kingdom will have gained not just knowledge, but the eternal gratitude of those we might restore." The debate that followed raged for 3 days. The nobles were split between those who saw opportunity and those who saw only madness. The common people, when word reached them, were surprisingly supportive. They had heard the stories of the cursed kingdom, had seen the refugees who occasionally stumbled across the borders with tales of slow starvation and creeping despair. It was Princess Elara who finally swayed her father's decision. "We have ruled justly and well," she said during a private council. "Our people are happy, our lands prosperous. But what test is that? Any fool can govern the willing and the well-fed. If this lion can learn to rule as we do, while we observe and guide when needed, might we not learn something ourselves about the true nature of leadership?" King Aldrich made his decision on the 4th day. The lion would rule, but under strict conditions. The king and his family would remain in the castle as advisors and observers. Any decision that might bring harm to the kingdom would be reviewed by a council of nobles, and at the end of the agreed time, all would return to as it was. Kyle accepted these terms without hesitation. The first months were turbulent. The lion's approach to governance was unlike anything the kingdom had seen. He spent long hours walking among the common people, not in grand processions, but in simple observation. He worked alongside farmers, learned the crafts of artisans, sat with merchants to understand the flow of trade. When disputes arose, he didn't simply issue judgments from the throne. He investigated personally, speaking to all parties, seeking to understand not just what had happened, but why. "You rule like a student," Princess Elara observed one evening as they walked through the castle gardens. "Because I am one," Kyle replied. "In my original kingdom, I ruled from pride and assumption. I thought leadership meant commanding, that wisdom meant never admitting ignorance. I see now that true leadership means serving, and you cannot serve what you do not understand." As seasons turned, subtle changes began to manifest. The kingdom's prosperity grew, but not through new taxes or harsh edicts. Instead, Kale had identified inefficiencies and inequities that had gone unnoticed for years. He restructured trade agreements, improved crop rotation systems, and established new crafts guilds that provided opportunities for those previously overlooked. But perhaps most remarkably, he began to teach. Every evening, Kale held court not for judgment of disputes, but for sharing knowledge. He spoke of the history he had witnessed, the mistakes his original kingdom had made, the warning signs they had ignored. He taught about the delicate balance between progress and tradition, between ambition and humility. Young nobles who had once seen governing as a privilege began to understand it as a profound responsibility. King Aldrich watched all of this with growing amazement. "I begin to think," he confided to his daughter, "that we are the ones truly benefiting from this arrangement." The most profound change came when a plague of locusts threatened the kingdom's crops. In the past, such disasters were met with emergency measures, hoarding by the rich, rationing for the poor, prayers for better fortune. Kale approached it differently. He had noticed that his original kingdom's downfall had begun with their disconnection from the natural world, their belief that they could take without giving back. Under his guidance, the kingdom mobilized not just to fight the locusts, but to understand why they had come. They discovered that changes in farming practices over recent years had eliminated the birds and beneficial insects that normally kept such pests in check. The solution wasn't just to drive away the locusts, but to restore the natural balance they had unknowingly disrupted. The approach worked, but more importantly, it taught the entire kingdom a new way of thinking about their relationship with the land they ruled. As the year drew to a close, Kyle's transformation became evident to all. The proud, desperate lion who had first entered their kingdom had become something else entirely. A leader who commanded respect not through fear or authority, but through wisdom and genuine care for those he served. On the final day of his rule, Kyle stood before the assembled court one last time. "I came here believing I needed to learn how to rule," he said, his voice carrying easily through the great hall. "I leave understanding that ruling is not what I sought at all. What I needed to learn was how to serve, how to listen, how to be worthy of the trust placed in me." He turned to King Aldrich. "Your Majesty, you have given me far more than knowledge. You have given me humility, and through humility, hope." The farewell was emotional. Even the nobles who had initially opposed the arrangement found themselves reluctant to see the lion go. Princess Elara presented him with a gift, a seed from the kingdom's oldest oak tree, blessed by their wisest druids. "For your new beginning," she said simply. Kyle returned to his dying kingdom, carrying more than knowledge. he carried a fundamental transformation of understanding. He found his people exactly as he had left them, but now he saw them with different eyes. Where once he had seen subjects to command, he now saw individuals to serve and support. The changes he implemented were gradual but profound. Instead of grand proclamations, he began with small acts of service. He shared the food from his own stores, worked alongside his people to tend what crops could still grow, and most importantly, he listened to their fears, their hopes, their ideas for survival. The seed Princess Ilara had given him was planted in the center of his castle courtyard. To everyone's amazement, it took root in the cursed soil and began to grow. Whether through magic or symbolism, its presence seemed to herald a turning point. Other plants began to survive, then thrive. The land's slow death appeared to halt, then gradually reverse. Years later, when traders from the Verdant Kingdom visited the neighboring realm, they found not the dying wasteland they expected, but a recovering kingdom guided by principles of service, humility, and careful stewardship. The curse had not been magically lifted, but it had been overcome through the harder magic of wisdom, compassion, and genuine leadership. Kyle still ruled there, no longer the proud lion who had once demanded a throne, but a leader who had learned that true kingship meant being the first servant of all he governed. And in the center of his courtyard, the oak tree from the Verdant Kingdom grew tall and strong, its branches providing shelter for all who sought it, a living symbol of what could grow when pride gave way to service and wisdom took root in humility. The two kingdoms became the closest of allies, their friendship founded not on treaties or marriages, but on the shared understanding that the greatest rulers are those who rule not for themselves, but for the flourishing of all life within their